Hey guys, this is X, and in today's video, I thought I would do a continuation on the Getting Started in Elder Scrolls Online series. Essentially what I'm going to be featuring in this particular one is just to basically giving you a few tips on just to get you going on your way. Um, Now, you've did the character creation, you've done the tutorial, so what's next? The biggest things that that come up is you acquiring weapons and armor and acquiring gold. Because when you come out of the tutorial, you really don't have a whole heck of a lot. Um, you have really crappy clothes. You just have one weapon, and have very little gold. Now, getting weapons and armor is not really that hard. Um, And my suggestion is if you go to like any place that there's been a battle, or maybe places where there's um, where guards are stationed at, they'll be usually they'll have like these racks set up with weapons on them, or various pieces of armor like shields and helmets that you can use. Now I will say this: if you decide to grab them, you don't have to worry about them pointing a finger at you and going, "Oh, you're stealing." You don't have to worry about that. But I will say but if you're planning on picking up the extra and trying to sell it, don't bother with it because they will not buy it because it's just too common. Um, Now, gold is another thing I feel that's easy to get, but the way you see some people on the text chat go on about it, it seems like it's the most hardest thing to do, but it's really not. Uh, as soon as you come out of the tutorial, and wherever you wind up landing at, just go from house to house and just basically take anything that's not nailed down. Um, Usually if it has like white, if you point to it and it has like white lettering, it usually means you can take it. If it's red lettering, that means that if you try to pick up this item, they will consider it stealing. And if you do happen to want to steal it, just make sure you look all the way around you. Make sure there's no guards or anything like that. Because if somebody sees you stealing it, they will call the guards, and the guards are very, very hard to get away from, especially when you're first starting out in this game. But if you happen to want to steal it, you obviously can't sell it to a merchant, but you can sell it to another person, and that's a fence at the Outlaws Refuge. So if you go on, let's see, we're going to go on the map here and take a look. Okay, and Vivek City, for example, if you go to like Vivek City's Outlaw Refuge, you can sell it there. All these Outlaws Refuges are usually in every major city, so just look for that icon, and you can go and sell your stolen items. Now they can also fix it to where the item that you stole is legal, for a fee. Because usually, let's say you have a stolen item and a guard catches you doing something else illegal entirely. If he catches you and arrests you, he will take the stolen items that you have. However, if you get a fence to make it legal, um, then if the guard arrests you, he won't know that was actually stolen because to him, it's legal. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, the other thing I want to talk to you about is skills. Now, I do have a video on skills, which I'll put a link uh, in the description box below, as well as other links that I feel might be helpful for beginners. And if you're interested in, kind of curious of like, well, okay, what's the best build to have for a particular, like character like a sorcerer or dragon knight or anything like that, I would recommend just going on other channels on YouTube because there are actual channels dedicated to builds. If you a good example would be Delchia's Gaming. He does like a lot of tutorials. He also does like a lot of quite a bit of builds. So if you want to know how to make your character as best as they can be, whether it be for PvP or whatever, I would suggest going there and just taking a look. Um, but if you're not interested in such things and you just want to make the choice yourself of just, you know, putting the points wherever you want to, you know, that's perfectly fine as well. But I will say this much: there are two different things that I think can be helpful to a person just starting out. Um, these are completely optional. You don't have to do it, but for me when I first started out, it helped quite a bit. Um, so if you go into skills, one of the things I suggest getting is soul magic. Now, when you raid chests or you kill monsters, occasionally you'll get a soul gem. And sometimes they'll be filled, and sometimes they won't be. Now, if they're filled, if you happen to get killed, or your colleague happens to get killed, you can resurrect yourself or your colleague on the spot. Now, if you don't have a filled soul gem, um, when you get killed, you wind up having to go all the way to a way shrine, which kind of sucks. Um, because if you're fighting a monster and you get killed, you know, you're helping your buddies, you know, and you're fighting a monster and you get killed and you get all the way back to a way shrine, and it's going to be a bit of a trip to try, unless the way shrine is pretty close to like a boss monster or anything like that. By the time you get there, the battle will already be over. so so I think it's good to really have this perk, because, and I'll tell you why. Because if you happen to have an empty soul gem and you put points in this, for example, on Soul Lock, killing an enemy with a weapon ability has a 10% chance of automatically filling an empty soul gem. Now, 10% may not seem like much at first, but trust me on this, you'll be killing quite a few monsters, and you'll be getting those, you know, those 10% chances quite often. So that means there's going to be a good chance that you're going to get your soul gem filled, and before you know it, you're going to have a lot of soul gems filled. And there's other options, like, you know, on this one, soul summons, which allows you to revive once every hour without spending the soul gem, which is good. I think if you put 1 point into it, I think it's like every 2 hours, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but like I said, this is just completely optional, but I find it very useful. That it saves you a lot of time and trouble, especially if you in the heat of battle and you want to continue the battle. I would definitely choose this to fill up your soul gems. Um, Now the other skills that I think that you should focus on. Now this is whether or not you want to do crafting, and I suggest if you do crafting, you do no more than 2 at the very beginning. You know, whether it be alchemy, you know, maybe you're choosing alchemy or blacksmithing together or what have you. I would say no more than 2, because otherwise you're going to spread your points out a little bit thin. But anyway, what you really want to look for, whether or not you're wanting to craft or you're just wanting to collect resources to sell, what you want to put points in is keen eye. And when you put points in the keen eye, it makes those particular resources that you're trying to find stand out. And I'll show you an example of that here in a minute. The more points you put into it, the further away you're going to see. And like I said, I'm going to give you an example in a few minutes. Now, not every one of these will have the keen eye. Provisioning won't. I think that's the only one that won't. And some of these you won't have to use keen eye. Like wood, for example, you're going to see logs laying on the ground. So obviously, I mean, unless you're completely, you know, blind, you're going to be able to see them. But the ones that are really hard to see, especially when you're traveling at night or you're traveling in tall grass, is alchemy. If you're trying to find plants for alchemy and for clothing, those are the ones that that are hard to see. So I would probably maybe stick some points at least into those. But let me get out of this for a minute. Okay, so let's just go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and find an example of what the glow looks like when you're out and about trying to find plants with this perk. Okay, so here is an example of what I'm talking about. If you have the keen eye perk, as you can see, that plant pops right out. You know, you have that magical glow going on. Now imagine if you didn't have that perk set at all. You know, this, it could very easily be missed when you're going through tall plants like this. So my suggestion is, if whether you're collecting for alchemy, or whatever you're doing, like for any kind of crafting, or if you're just looking to get stuff to sell, this is a good perk to have, especially when you're running around at night, because the more points you put into it, you know, the farther you can see these resources. You know, of course, there's a resource right there I can see pretty well as well. Now, when you pick up the plant, or any other resource, usually there'll be an extra thing tacked onto it. Like sometimes, you know, if you pick up Lady Smock, there might be a thing that says worms below it. Please make sure that you use the take all option, because if you don't, if you just take the plant and not the worms, it doesn't respawn until somebody comes along there and grabs the rest of it. So, and plus you're gonna wind up, you know, pissing somebody off, because they're gonna wind up going to the plant and going, oh, you know, here's Lady Smock, and they try to get it, and then all it is worms. So yeah, don't do that. Don't be a dick. Just grab the whole thing, because it's not like you can't take the worm and just destroy it, or you can simply use it for fishing. So just go ahead and take all of it. But that's all I wanted to talk to you guys for today. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and please subscribe if you haven't done so already. And I hope to talk to you guys real soon. Take care.